All right, ladies and gentlemen out there, I think we may have solved the internet issues. Okay. Okay, coming up our first rotation. Joseph V from the Wisconsin Flippers with a 13.6 on the vaults. Max R from Iowa's GymACT as well, 13.6, tying it up. Top of the all-around competition. Second place going to Luke Peterson from Minnesota on the parallel bars. And that's after one event. 5 more to go. Let's tune into the floor here and see what we have going on. Sash Kumar from Altius representing. All right, let's swing over to High Bar and watch the Lakeshore boys. Back on floor, Altius is lead. Sash K from LTS with a 10.2 on that last floor exercise. Let's see what his teammate can produce. And we got a salute here on the High Bar as we wait for Lee's score on Altius, and we'll tune right back in. $11.6 that last floor exercise for Altius. Getting us started nice and good. Representing the junior teams here today. Last floor exercise from Gavin B of Altius with an 11.4. But it looks like they're in first place all around after the first rotation of the juniors with a 45.8. followed by Bright Raven. And your Iowa Hawkeyes starting it off strong. First place after their first rotation on vaults. Followed closely by Minnesota with a 51-4, and then your NIU Huskies with a 46-4. This rotation break brought to you by On the Spot Janitorial and Maintenance and Building Services. Thank you to our 2026 GymACT and junior team sponsors for the NIU Invitational here in wonderful Wheaton. Again, we're just waiting on a score deliberation, and we'll send them off to their second event, Flight A. The college boys taking their second event here on the rotation. And there's the signal for the 1 minute rotation onto event 2. Let's get them moving into the 2 minute touch, and then we'll see what they can do. Checking in on the Division II, the junior all-around scorers. We got 3 boys from Altius up at the top, all of them taking the floor exercise. Grayson B with an 11-8, taking first place. Second place, his teammate Braden Turner with an 11-6. And in third, Altius' own Gavin Burnett, followed closely by a tie for fourth from Edge Gymnastics with an 11.0 on the rings. And Liam F., Altius teammate, with an 11.0 on floor. Coming in close behind, a two-way tie at 6 with Asa Smith from Bright Raven with it a 10.9 on the pommel. And Stanislav from Lakeshore on the high bar with a 10.9. And that's your junior division competition as it sits right now. As we move up to the GymACT, it's time for the 2 minute touch. Don't forget, type in chat what your favorite team is. Cheer them on. They might hear you. We might shout them out. Got a bunch of Minnesota fans there in chat. I see you guys out there. Minnesota moving over to high bar this rotation. Yeah, we're working on our vault camera right now. And with that, we're going to begin on the floor with NIU. Carl V finishing a strong routine there, getting NIU team started on the floor. And as we wait for Alex Hopper, we're going to tune into the end here of this high bar. Minnesota's Luke Peterson. Excellent double release move combo there. See if we can finish this up with a big dismount. Excellent. Now, I don't know if you can hear it, folks, but the crowd here is erupting with these routines. And Alex Hopper taking the floor for NIU. And with Alex finishing it up, we're going to swing back to high bar with Minnesota. Luke Peterson scoring a 13-5 on his. Let's see if teammate Justin, let's see what he can put up. This is Justin L., a senior here at Minnesota from Centennial, Colorado, representing Cherry Creek High School and Pinnacle Gymnastics. Fun fact about him is about me just says, I am cheese. That routine was pretty smooth. So let's tune back over to Mason Walton from NIU on the floor. Mason Walton from NIU. Check in with the rest of the competition. And a big routine on the high bar from Minnesota's Ben Letvin, followed right behind by Jeremy Brinkman on the floor representing NIU. Iowa finishing up here on parallel bars. Now up Bradley Tooley on the floor from NIU. Bradley's a freshman from Belleville, Illinois, competing in the all-around, representing St. Louis Gymnastics Center. This will be his first NIU invite. Let's see what he can do. Ben Letvin from Minnesota scoring a 12-6 on that last high bar routine. Really coming out strong. Minnesota Gymnastics swinging here in the second event. Bradley Tooley with an 11-9 on the floor exercise. Up next on high bar, Minnesota's Christian Abram. A junior from Palo Alto, California, representing Stanford Boys Gymnastics Club back home, now competing here for Minnesota. Teammate Jack Gagmov putting up a 13.6 right before him. Oh, I had it. Christian A finishing that strong, showing everybody that if you fall down, you get right back on that apparatus and you finish your routine. I don't see any other apparatuses competing, so we're going to stay here on the high bars. I think we have one more coming up for Minnesota. I believe it'll be Peter Davis. And then we'll switch over, rotate to the juniors one last time. Christian A with an 11.2, even with the fall. Just barely made that. There he goes. Big finish for Pete. Couple steps out, but closing down. High bar for Minnesota. And with that, I believe that'll send us to our touch. Let's check in with the scores after two. Minnesota still on top with a 102-3. A few more scores to come in. Iowa in second. Over to the junior division. Altius leading the way after the first one, with Bright Raven in a close second. All right, folks, checking in on the all-around scores after two in GymACT. Luke Peterson, Minnesota, number one with a 26-7. Teammate Ben Letvin right behind him on a 25-6. Third place from New York Alliance, 24-6. Fourth place from Iowa is Rafe Schaffner, 23-8. In fifth place, Iowa teammate, 23.7. That's after two. They go to break as we bring on the juniors for their rotation. And that's the 2-minute touch call, folks. Let's go to the cameras and watch the juniors warm up. This rotation shows Lakeshore and Prairie Fire on the floor. Altius taking the pommel. Bright Raven on the rings. Edge Gymnastics on vaults. The Wisconsin Flippers on P-bars. And a bye for the judges on the high bar this one. Oh, this just in. I'm wrong. Minnesota has a second team. Minnesota's team 2 will be competing on the high bar. So all you Minnesota fans, don't worry. They're here. We're going to call that a producer error. Because my production team laughs at me. Starting on the floor, Bo McCrae from the Lakeshore. I've had the chance of seeing Bo compete a few times, and I'll tell you what, anybody from Lakeshore Gymnastics knows these kids usually bring the fire. Peter Davis Ross finishing off for Minnesota on the high bar. Johnny Sorial on pommel. And now Prairie Fire's Luke McGuire taking the floor. And that'll come to the end of the second rotation as we move on to 3. Top of the third puts us with Minnesota Team 1 on the floor. NIU Black on pommel. Altius on rings with NIU Red. New York taking the vaults with Bright Raven. Kansas City and Edge on parallel bars. And Iowa will be flying high as Hawkeyes do on the high bar. And the junior all-around still in first place from Lakeshore is Bo McCrea with a 24. Second place, we have a tie at a 22-5. Edge Gymnastics teammates Landon Thomas and Logan Loris. Fourth place going to Altius is Braden Turner with a 22.2. And in fifth, Milo Anderson from Bright Raven with a 21.9. And that's your junior division all-around results as it sits right now. We've just gotten the call to rotate. So let's put them on the cameras and let's see what we got for Flight 3. And that's the call for the 2-minute touch. And with that call, we begin competition. Alexander Riley starting us off on high bar for Iowa. Max Rackhut on high bar here for Iowa. Sophomore from Joliet. Season high score of a 12.2. Let's see if he can deliver today for the Hawkeyes. Excellent finish to that routine. On floor exercise for Minnesota, we have Paul Acker. A junior from Van Nuys, California, representing Gymnastics Olympica USA. majoring in mechanical engineering and engineering, an excellent routine here for MMG. Up next on high bar for the Hawkeyes, Rafe Schaffner, senior out of Denver, Colorado. Season high 12.3 on the high bar. Let's see if we can make Herky proud here with this one. A huge routine for Iowa right there on the high bar. As Ben Letvin takes the floor from Minnesota. A junior out of Elkridge, representing United Gymnastics. With that, we go back to the high bar where Harrison Brandt from the Hawkeyes, sophomore out of Oak Lawn, Illinois, season high at 12.5, is starting his routine and muscling through. Oh, he just fell. Harrison back on the bar. As we go back to full screen, because Micah Winder taking the floor for Minnesota. Freshman out of Dover, Delaware. First year competing for Minnesota. An excellent finish. Really ignites his team. We need to get crowd mics for the next one because you people at home probably can't hear what we're hearing here in this gym, but it is electric. Looks like we have Aaron Novick up next. Junior out of Palo Alto, California. Now competing here in Illinois. For Minnesota for the NIU Invitational. Chemical engineering major, representing the Stanford boys gymnastics back home. Let's see what kind of scores he can put up here for MNG. Harrison Brandt from Iowa putting up an 11.1, just shy of his season high there for Iowa, but still delivering. That'll look good as Iowa is still in second place to Minnesota here as we crest through the final few routines of our third rotation here at the GymACT competition. We got two more routines here on the floor. Just a bit of a judge's deliberation. We're waiting for Peter Davis Ross and Aaron Novick. Van Letvin with a 13.5 for Minnesota Team 1. And there goes Ben jogging across the floor. Give his teammates some encouragement. Well, as we wait, let's check in the scores. Junior division, Edge now in front. Altius with an 86. Minnesota still off to a big lead. Iowa right behind. New York, then NIU Team 1. Kansas City, NIU 2. Wisconsin, and Minnesota second team taking up the rear. And that's the call for the 2-minute touch. Bottom of the third rotation. Minnesota Team 2 taking the floor. Lakeshore will be on. Pommel. NIU Red on the rings. Actually, that's Altius on the rings. Bright Raven taking vault, edge on the parallel bars. And that finishes this round of the warm-up touches. It's time for the competition to begin. Looks like Peter Davis Ross from Minnesota will get us started on the floor. Grayson Burnett, I think, is that over there on the rings. Bo McCrea and Stanislav K from Lakeshore over there on Pommel Horse getting us started. Luke McGuire from Prairie Fire will be right after them. Peter Davis Ross, oldest of 5 siblings, started gymnastics when he was just 5 years old, representing Central Coast Gymnastics from San Luis Obispo, California. Now here competing for Minnesota. Altius on the rings. Currently in second place after 3 rotations. And this here, Aaron Novak, junior from Palo Alto, California, represented Minnesota. 11-year gymnast. Big showing from Minnesota on the floor from both teams. Bright Ravens Milo Anderson scoring a 12-2 on the vault this rotation. An 11.1 for Drew Bankinson. On the parallel bars, Aaron Novick with a 12.3 for Minnesota Team 2 on the floor exercise. Stanislav K with an 11.3 representing Lakeshore on the pommel. Braden Turner from LTS with a 10.7 on the rings. I believe this might be the last routine here of this rotation, which will take us to the top of 4. Again, appreciate everyone so much for being here on behalf of GymACT, USAG, and everyone here at NIU. Let's go to the scores and see where we stand. Minnesota with 154.2. Iowa still at 143.6. Bright Raven taking the lead at the junior division, followed by Edge. Altius dropping out of third. Lakeshore in fourth. And that's our call for our 1 minute rotation, folks. We'll see you soon for the 2 minute touch. We have Iowa Hawkeyes going to the floor. Minnesota, both teams will head to Pommel. On the rings will be NIU, Lakeshore, and PFG. Altius will be vaulting with the other NIU team. New York Academy and Bright Raven will take parallel bars. Kansas City and Edge head over to High Bar. Stay tuned. As our 2 minute touch begins now. And with those touches done, event number 4 begins. As the team cheers begin and the electricity starts to heat up. Jake Pori on floor for Iowa, season high of a 12.6 from Plainfield, Illinois, a sophomore competing here today. getting things started for the Hawkeyes. Lucas Gutman from NIU putting up a big one on the vault. Minnesota's Jack Gagamaw on the pommel horse with a 12.4 to start it off. Next up, Paul Acker on pommel for Minnesota. Jake scoring an 11.4 on floor for the Hawkeyes. As teammate Nolan Levy takes his routine. Nolan's a sophomore from Overland Park, Kansas. Season high floor score of 12.75. Let's see what he can do. Liam McGuire from NIU scoring at 11.8 on the vault. And teammate Luke Melnick with a 10.8. Kansas City's Chase Mussman with a 10.6 on high bar. As I believe up now is Joshua Loudy. Joshua is in his third year here from Smithville, Missouri. Paul Acker from Minnesota's pommel horse with a 12.3 score. NIU's Braden NIU's Bradley Tooley on the rings with an 11.1. Nolan Levy from Iowa, that score on the floor, 12.2, bit shy of his season high, but still representing. As teammate Aiden Murray takes the floor. Aiden's a junior from Oswego. His season high is a 13-000 here on the floor exercise. Everett Barnett from NIU with an 11.8 on the rings. Ooh. Aiden Murray almost finishing, just a little bit under rotated there. That routine should still score big for the Hawkeyes. Let's swing over to high bar. I believe this is Aiden Dawson, a first-year freshman majoring in cybersecurity. But let's see what his high bar routine looks like. Oh, that's a big dismount there. Mid-routine, Iowa on floor. Max Racket. Sophomore out of Joliet. Season high of a 13.150. Oh, big stick for Iowa there. You can see it all over his face. He's happy with that one. Aiden Dawson with a 10-4 for Kansas City on that high bar routine. As we bring up Rafe Schaffner from Iowa. Senior out of Denver. Season high is a 14-0. This should be a powerful floor routine from Iowa. As Minnesota finishes up on the pommel. This is one not to miss, folks. We're going to tune in full for this one. A huge pass. One more pass. And that finishes it up for Iowa on the floor. Scores are coming in now. Minnesota still off to a commanding lead after 4 events, with Iowa in second. New York Alliance in third. Actually, no. Scores updating. NIU taking third. New York Alliance dropping down to fourth. Kansas City fifth. NIU Team 2 in sixth place. And that'll bring up our 2-minute touch for the second flight. And from Wisconsin, I believe we're going to have Joseph Volk on the floor. Minnesota Team 2 taking the pommel. Lakeshore and PFG on the rings. Rafe Schaffner with a 13.3. I believe that might be one of the highest floor scores we've seen all night. Let's check in here. Altius should be on vaults with Bright Raven on the parallel bars. And Edge Gymnastics flying high on the single bar. And that'll end the touch going into the bottom of 4. That's Drew Bankson from Edge Gymnastics starting off on high bar. Landon Thomas on high bar from Edge. Joseph Volk from Wisconsin Flippers here on the floor. Liam Fade from Altius with an 11.8 on the vault. Luke McGuire from PFG on the rings with a 9.7. Minnesota's Vikram Isaac on the pommel horse with 11.1. Parallel bars from Bright Raven. We have Jack Martin with an 11.5. And on the high bar, Banning McElroy from Edge Gymnastics, scoring a 10.6 for his team. And Joseph Volk from Wisconsin Flippers with an 11.9 on the floor exercise. Braden Turner on vault from Altius, scoring a 12.2. Luke Sikora, Bright Ravens own parallel bars, scoring an 11.2. And on the rings from Lakeshore, it's Bo McCrea with a 13.2. And we have Sashwat Kumar from Altius with an 11.4 on the vault. Logan Lawrence from Edge on the high bar, scoring an 11.3. I think we only have this high bar routine left. Oh no, there might be one more on pommel. Aaron Novick, the junior from Minnesota, going to finish things off here for this rotation. Ooh. Almost lost it at the end, but overall a great routine to bring us to the end of the fourth rotation here at the NIU Invitational 2026. And Jack Huang from Edge on the high bar, scoring an 8.9 for his team. As these final scores come in, we're going to send them off to their fifth rotation. Kansas City will be headed to the floor. Iowa onto the pommel. Minnesota Going to the rings. NIU Team Black will be vaulting. Altius with NIU Red will be on the parallel bars. And New York headed to the high bar. Aaron Novick from Minnesota. That pommel horse routine scores him an 11.4. And let's check in on the overall team scores here as we finish up these judges' deliberations. Looks like Minnesota still off to a commanding lead, with Iowa about 10 points down. NIU now in third place. On the junior side, Bright Raven taking the lead with Altius in second, and Edge Gymnastics in a very close third. And that'll finish it, bringing us to our 2-minute touches. Some judge deliberation here on the parallel bars camera. He didn't. He didn't see me. And with your touch complete, it's starts your competition for the 5th event here. Starting off on the rings, I believe that's Joseph Pennell over there. On floor, Aiden Dawson. Adam Berger should be swinging first on the high bar with Reese Diedrich on parallel bars. And from Iowa, I think that's Aiden Murray over there from on the pommel horse. And back in the vaults, NIU. McBain Scholzen starting it off for the Huskies. Teammate Everett Barnett coming up next. Reese Diedrich on the parallel bars with an 11.4 as teammate Liam McGuire takes the bars next. High flying dismount here from Chaz Gertis from New York. Iowa's Aiden Murray on the pommel with an 11.6. And on the vault, McBain with a 12.7. We got some Reese fans in the chat. Everett Barnett vaulting with a 12.8. Up next, Alex Hopper. Chaz Gertis, 10.3 on high bar from New York. Minnesota's Joseph Pennell on the rings with a 12.6. And Liam McGuire with a 12.0 from NIU on the parallel bars, which brings up Lucas Goodman for the final NIU parallel bar routine of this rotation. Vaulting, I believe that's Bradley Tooley in the back. Alex Hopper with a 13.0 for NIU on the vault. Which leaves Chase Orna as the final vaulter of this rotation. See, here comes Chase's vault for NIU. Finishing it off for the Huskies. Coach Zach seems happy with that one. As Bradley Tooley with a 13.3 on the vault. Evan Frey from Kansas City scoring a 10.3 on the floor exercise. Braden Kim on the rings with a 12.2 for Minnesota. Chase Orna, 12.6 vault for NIU. Manny Rivera with a 7.5 for Iowa on the pommel. Joshua Loudy from Kansas City finishing it up here on the floor. Joshua's a third year from Smithville, Missouri. And he actually went to Edge Gymnastics, who's competing here today with Kansas City. I think that was a 9.7 from Lucas G of NIU on parallel bars. Christopher Davis from New York with a 9.6 on the high bar. I'm sorry, that was Christopher DeVille, which brings up Casey Casara for New York on the high bar to finish things off. Braden Mann on the floor for Kansas. As Jake Pori takes the pommel. Jake, the sophomore from Plainfield. His season high is at 11.75. Casey Casara from New York with an 11.3 on the high bar. Ben Levin from Minnesota on the rings with an 11.3. That's Owen Frank finishing it up for Minnesota on the rings. Which leaves Sean Francis, the freshman from Elkridge, studying psychology from Paragon Gymnastics. And now competing for Minnesota. Up next for Iowa on the pommel is Rafe Schaffner. Teammate Jake Pori scored an 11.4 before him. On the floor for Kansas, Cole Boanon. All right, let's tune in with Sean, finish up his ring routine. Excellent control there as he finishes it off. And I believe that brings us to the end of the first flight of rotation 5. Let's check in with the scores while we wait to rotate for flight 2 to come up, which will be Edge Gymnastics on the floor, Wisconsin Flippers on pommel. Minnesota Team 2 will take the rings. On the vault will be Lakeshore Academy and PFG. Parallel bars will be Altius. And flying high on the high bar, Bright Raven. Cole Boanon from Kansas City with an 11.1 on the floor exercise. Currently, Bright Ravens still in the lead in the junior division, with Minnesota leading the GymACT competition. NIU in second place, with Iowa in third. Rafe Schaffner on pommel horse scored a 10.6 for his Gymhawks. Just waiting here now for confirmation from our head judge, Sean Francis from Minnesota with a 12-3 on the rings. And Christopher DeVille from New York with a 9.9 on the high bar. And this brings us to our 2-minute touch for the juniors and some of the Team 2s.